Last time on What Happened to Paul, the team nailed down the plan for Vivun's new product launch. Dominique took charge and got everyone on the same page. The resources were set, the timeline defined, and it seemed like the path forward was clear. But the real work was just beginning.
Hey, Jarod, what's up?
Hey V, I have some news.
Oh boy.
Changing the product. Monday, we're gonna have to start all over.
You're kidding.
I wish I was.
All right. Okay. Let me think here. Um, so we're going to need to redo the plan. I'm going to call Paul, see if he can meet later this
Well, hold on,
afternoon. Okay.
hold, because here's the thing. I can't find Paul anyway.
What?
I think we're gonna have to do this thing without him.
In this episode, we move into the creation phase. Victoria Myers, the creative force behind the launch, faces the challenge of turning the plan into something tangible. But when things don't go as expected, it's her job to adapt, pivot, and make sure the content and production stay on track. So, what happens when the plan unravels and everything seems like a mess? Well, Victoria's about to find out.
So, Victoria, when we shifted into creation, what did you expect would happen? What was the plan you had to execute against?
We expected that we'd follow the same launch motion that we've done for the past couple of years. We were also in the process of kind of rethinking our campaign and content strategy based on some trends that we've been following for a while. So there was some things that were going to be different this time, but in general, the plan is always to center a product launch around seasonal webinars or virtual events every single time, just to give us an anchor. So first we would do the creative and the theme of the unexpected event. Ironically, we title these unexpected. That does give us a lot of flexibility to move things around as we need from a creative perspective down the road. But then from there, we build the agenda, we build the guest outreach plan, the launch comms, the social schedule. And I've found that the editorial calendar and all of the other content needs kind of reveal themselves and write themselves nicely around all of that. You know, we're up to date on the product because we're syncing with them anyway on the demo for the event. We're up to date on the narrative because we have to frame the launch for the event theme. I will say something that happened this year that was different. My own journey into marketing was really non-traditional. So I didn't have like decades of ingrained experience and expectations of what the playbook must be. We're following the process. We're following what we've established here at Vivun, but I'm relatively new and flexible, and that really played to my advantage this year, especially.
When you're bringing a big product launch to life, what's the hardest part about making sure the creative vision doesn't get lost in the shuffle?
So we've done a lot of trial and error with this over the past couple of years. And I think that when the product shifts and launches, the messaging often changes overnight. So it really comes down to choosing the right umbrella message, the right overarching theme, and then putting a flexible framework in place around that and ensuring that the creative isn't too rigid or the timelines aren't too rigid.
Paul's playbook was rigid because in the time before AI and rapid change, that was okay. There wasn't really room for flexibility because no flexibility was needed. Nothing would really change that would drastically affect the overall launch. With Paul gone with no explanation, yeah, it was scary, but also a little freeing.
We really try to get ahead of losing the creative vision by getting the design components and the content themes, they're templatized. So we basically play Legos with the messaging pieces, the design components. We create all these building blocks that then we can use to pivot and adjust and shift nicely into place as everything comes together. This time, too, we really lucked out. We were working with an agency for the first time to get some fresh eyes on our campaign strategy. So we had chosen a new campaign and a message that was more broad reaching. And I hate to say evergreen ever, but we were launching around a more power to sales, core campaign narrative that was really focused at the heart of what we wanted to accomplish. Yeah, as you can imagine, flexible enough to sustain all of the changes that we didn't know were going to happen, but that did.
So tell me about that. So the moment it all changed for you, where were you? What were you doing?
Well, Jarod, I don't know if you knew that this was the moment everything changed for me, but you were there virtually. I was actually on the floor in my cousin's basement. She had just had a baby, so I was visiting her and I was taking my Zoom calls sitting on the floor with my laptop on her air mattress. And you called us to let us know that we were changing the name of our product offering. And it wasn't changing the message as much of what we were planning for that launch, but that's just really when it hit me that all of these little micro changes that we had been making for the past several weeks to our launch plan, it really signaled a broader pivot. We were really launching a new product to a new audience, and we were becoming a new company. So it was really hard to let go of that old identity at first after fighting for so many years in so many different positions at this company to build brand equity in a really niche space, building a community, making a lot of really personal connections. So I feel like that's the moment where I had the emotional reaction to it.
I want to pause here and let that sink in for a moment. We were becoming a new company. Identity is a funny thing. You build on something for so long that it feels like you won't change, no matter what happens in the future. Just like personal identities, company identities are subject to change. But that usually happens over the course of several months. People have the opportunity to get used to it, little by little. For the Vivun team, though, this happened in one weekend, faster than the speed of light when you think about it in product launch terms. With that much whiplash and hardly any time to recover, it's hard not to have an emotional reaction.
How'd you stay calm and keep everything on track?
I didn't at first. I really reacted to it. And when you think about it at the macro level of making all of these changes, a new audience with a new product, with new needs and new messaging and new branding, it's really overwhelming. But when I stepped back from that, I think I was able to weave it into the larger narrative of what it's like working at a startup. So I started in tech as an SDR, which naturally builds a lot of resilience. And also being at a startup, change is always a constant. It's really cliche, but it is. This time, what was really different when I looked at it was the pace of change, the pace of product innovation, and how we were talking about a product and communicating about it and thinking about how to educate the market about it. But once you expect change as your reality and level set expectations around that, it was actually really liberating because it allowed us as a marketing team to just go back to the drawing board to try a lot of really new creative ideas. We weren't stuck in an old formula anymore. We were just completely free. And then it became exciting.
So, how in the world were they able to pivot so quickly and actually deliver on the creation and then the messaging that's to come? With Paul, the old product playbook gone, Ava stepped in to be a teammate and help bring everything across the finish line.
So at the end of the day, when everything's ready to go live, what's the most rewarding part of the creation phase for you?
Yeah. So sometimes I will say in these launch motions, I get really too close to all of it. I get too close to the content. I get too close to the virtual event. I'm on the cutting room floor. I'm making those edits. But what's really rewarding is to see the final product through other people's eyes. So for this year, it was getting to preview the entire launch event to our entire company the day before that we went live with it. Especially our engineering and product team, they work so hard through all of these major pivots behind the scenes, and they trust us on the marketing side with the message and to get it out to the world. And for them to see the impact, kind of lights, camera, action of the whole thing, it's really cool. And I know that when the event is over, that's when the real content work starts. But that post event feel is really motivational to get started and keep the ball rolling.
How did the team keep the ball rolling? With Paul gone, the creation process was freeing, even if a little hectic, but people had to be told what the new messaging and positioning was. How did they communicate the change clearly when everyone had already been told something else? More on that in the next episode of What Happened to Paul, the death of the traditional product launch playbook.
We knew our entire message had to be flipped. Web needed to be the priority, and we basically made that the hub and the central messaging. All edits were live edits. We would sit around a screen, we would think about it and then publish. Some of the changes were competing. I had some CSS bugs, and there were certainly times where I was very worried that the web was not going to mirror what we were launching.